to my channel. Long time no see. Sorry about the delay in getting any more videos out, but I'm back and I actually have a request today, which is great because it was actually on my list to do. So this one comes from the Advanced Methods for Flute Volume 1 book again. And this one is on pages 24 and 25. It's exercise number 6. And it's marked as Allegro Risoluto, and it's by Popp, P-O-P-P. So I think what I'm going to do here is to, I'm going to start by playing the piece all the way through so you can hear what it sounds like. And then I've got a few things written down that I'll talk about afterward. If there is something I don't talk about or you have a question, please feel free to leave it below, and I will do my very best to answer it. So, all right, let me start by playing the whole piece through. So there we have it. Now, so let's move on. So I kind of feel like the beginning of this has sort of a militaristic type feel. How do we do that? So I kind of feel like there should be some space between each note a little bit, and played very deliberately. Not super legato. We don't want that. We want a little space, a little daylight between each one of these notes here at the beginning. It's the first measure into the downbeat of the second measure. And this figure happens twice. Happens in the first measure, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, and then in the fifth measure. Also, the first note of measure 1 and measure 5 has a accent mark over it. So of course accenting means to play it louder, but we can also play it with more intensity. And we can do that by using a stronger, heavier vibrato. So listen to, I'm just gonna play that figure right at the beginning. This is the, if you're watching along, this is the first measure and it's the forte section. So here's what I mean by deliver it with some space in between. Okay, and then the next one. So put a little bit of space in between there, and I think it'll sound really nice. Now the other thing about the beginning is that we have a measure and a half of forte, followed immediately by a short piano section. And like I said before, that happens twice. And we really want to make a contrast here between the forte section and then the little piano section. And the piano, it almost feels, I guess you could think of it as being an echo of what just came before. It's not really an echo because we're not playing exactly what we just played in the forte section. You could maybe think of it in terms of like The forte section would be somebody who's standing right on stage, and then the piano section would be somebody who is responding, but they're off stage. So naturally, that's going to be a little bit softer. So we really need, in order to really make this sound interesting, we need to bring out those dynamics of each one of these sections. So I'm gonna play the first like line and a half, and listen to the contrast, not only in style, because the first measure will have that sort of very deliberate military sounding quality to it, and then the forte section can be a little more legato, not quite as heavy as the first measure. So let me play just like the first line and a half. So we really get in the first couple of lines some nice contrast in mood right off the bat. So there is that. Now, the other thing here that I have written down, we have quite a few 16th note runs, and as I always say, do not play a piece any faster than you're comfortable playing the fast notes accurately. So, let's see, I think the 16th note run that might give people the most problem happens in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, in measure 12. So if you can play measure 12 quickly and accurately, great. If not, slow it down, the whole piece down, to a tempo at which you can play that measure comfortably. Now, if you are having trouble with that measure, I have a tip here for working on sections that are challenging, whether they're fast or just weird fingering combinations or something like that. And so what we're going to do, I'll just show you this real quick, is to change the rhythm. And we have 3 different rhythms that we're going to use. So we're going to do a long short, a short long, and then we're going to try it in triplets before playing it as written. So let me show you what I mean. We're going to start with the long short. So we're going to play long, short, long, short, long, short, and this doesn't have to be fast. You can play it slow and work on getting it faster. But here's what it sounds like in measure 12. Okay, long, short, long, short. Play it several times. I always say if you can play it 3 times correctly, then you can move on, either faster or something else, whatever, but you have to play it 3 times correctly. If you mess up, go back to the beginning, square one. So that's the long short. Once you're comfortable with that, then we're gonna reverse it to short long. Okay, same thing. Play it several times until you're comfortable with it. Speed it up, whatever. The last one is triplets, and I always feel like this is the most difficult one to do because I don't know. It can be hard to rearrange your brain when you're looking at one rhythm but trying to think of another one. Also, it doesn't necessarily work out to be even. You might not have an even number of notes in the measure so that it works out quite right. That's okay, no big deal. Let me see if I can manage the triplet version here. Let me do that again. So that one didn't work out evenly. There was an extra note, but that's okay. So I really, really, really like doing this, and I do it myself a lot, because it might feel like doing these uneven rhythms. Oh, by the way, go back and play it as written after you've done all 3 of those several times. But it might feel like it takes forever to get through it and you're just working on this one spot over and over and over, but trust me, it saves you so much time in the long run. And what's really happening is you're getting it under your fingers, for one, but you're getting it in your brain like 3 or 4 different ways, and you're really gonna know it by the time it's all said and done. So my number one tip with anything is uneven rhythms. If you've got a hard section, uneven rhythms, that is my go-to. Okay, so all right, so that's that. We got the 16ths and the uneven rhythms and everything. Speaking of measure 12 and those 16th notes, something that I wanted to point out that I noticed a lot of students doing is when you're coming off of playing quicker notes, in this case 16ths. So this is followed by, this measure is followed by a measure of eighth notes. And what I see happen a whole lot is you play the 16ths and then completely run through the slower valued notes that follow it. It's just really easy to do. You just get stuck in that, in playing fast and completely gloss over the fact that now you've got to, pull it back to half the value of what it was before. So I'm going to play through measure 12 and measure 13. So that's a measure of 16ths followed by a measure of eighths, okay? Okay, so it's going to feel like you're really slamming on the brakes, but be very mindful of the fact that it's slowing down to eighth notes right there, so you don't just blow right through it. All right, so I think one of the last things that I have is just to pay attention to the dynamics overall. There's a few decrescendos in here. For example, on the very last measure on page 24, we have, that didn't sound very good. And then that goes into a piano section or measure on the next page. We've got a diminuendo near the end. So just make sure that you pay attention to the crescendos and the diminuendos and all that. It's easy to overlook those things when you're trying to get the notes, when you're trying to pay attention to the rhythm or stay in time. So highlight them, circle them, whatever you have to do, just don't ignore them. And then, okay, so then the last thing that I really think that I want to say about this is to try to listen carefully as you're going from low notes to high notes. There's a couple of places in this piece where we're jumping almost an octave, maybe not an octave, but, well, there is one, I see an octave leap here, but large intervals, when we're leaping from low to high, large intervals, it's really easy to let the higher note get away from you and just be really loud and out of place. And we want to try to dial that back. Now, that's easier said than done, but if you can be aware that you're doing it, then you can work on pulling it back. I think where I'm thinking of this specifically is near the end. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 measures from the end. We have, so we have a G sharp jumping up to a high E, and it can be very easy to let the E get away from you. We don't want to blast everybody with that high E. E's have a tendency to be a little funky anyway, and if it doesn't turn out real well, we definitely don't want to put that in people's faces. What I kind of like to think about is if you are making the note before the high note louder and trying to, and you can even write, mezzo piano, piano above the high note so that you can be conscious of trying to bring it back just a little bit. And that happens in the third measure from the end. It happens again in the second measure from the end, and a few other places where we're going from low to high. So I just wanted to point that out. Really listen to what your high notes sound like when you're coming at them from much lower, and even record yourself so you can hear what it sounds like. That would be the easier thing to do. So that is that. Like I said, if you have any questions please leave them down below and I will try to answer them, and if there's enough, maybe I'll make a follow-up video. But anyways, thanks so much for watching. Bye everybody.